Welcome to my rainy round at Copetown Woods, where my wardrobe is accidentally symbolic, because today I'm going to talk about how to be unsexy but effective in your golf game. This opening hole is a short par 5 and a great opportunity for me to just play conservative and try to get just that. Before teeing off on this hole, one of the marshals, Carol, told me two things. One, she just got back from a Florida golf trip and learned to keep her hands low, and two, don't miss right. So you can see that I set my feet out to the left and I tried to keep those hands low, and thank you, Carol, for the tip and instilling fear into me, because this beautiful little baby draw ended up right in the middle of the fairway. The stats I'm tracking today to try and keep myself focused in the rain are that I would like to try to accomplish more than 40% of greens in regulation, stick to my pre-shot routine more than 60% of the time, I do not want to leave more than 5 putts short, and I do not want to have more than 2 3-putts. Hopefully that can lead to around about 80. And it certainly would have been a great way to start my day by lacing this 5-iron onto the green, but I absolutely top it. I made the mistake of leaving my clubs in my trunk last night, so my irons were not only figuratively, but also literally cold. So when I tell you that I could feel every single vibration of that swing from my fingertips down to the tips of my toenails, I am clearly exaggerating, but truthfully, it did not feel good. But I have to regroup from that because I still have a chance to get on this first green in regulation by hitting a nice little wedge shot in here. And I do, but I failed to realize that not only is this green huge, but the pin is tucked quite far back, so that means that I have a birdie putt, but it's a doozy. And since I certainly do not want to start my day with a 3-putt, I take my time reading this. Since I already know that the swing of the putt is going to move to the right at the very beginning, I do spend most of my time reading the second half of this putt. But it all ended up being pointless anyway, because since I did not go on the practice green before this round, I had zero feel for this roll, and I left this putt incredibly short. But at least I have a chance to save the par. And I do not. Opening bogey and a 3-putt, but thankfully there are 17 more holes to go. This second hole is the epitome of risk-reward. Straight ahead, about 225 yards away, there is a massive pond. If you want to try and drive it, you need to hit the narrowest of fairways to the left. Or you can do what I decide to do here and lay up with a 5-wood. Now I do promise if you continue to watch the rest of this video, I will not be showing the entire pre-shot sequences. I've kept them in to highlight that even when I do my pre-shot routine, sometimes I have these little tweaks and variances to them that I need to get out of the way. For example, on this one you might have noticed I had 2 little pumps in between my regular 2 practice takeaways. Or you may have been distracted that my attempt to lay up with a 5-wood was completely shanked into the rough. And this seems like a fitting time to remind you that I did warn you at the very beginning that this is an unsexy but efficient round. For example, I did not shank it into the water, and that is because I was intentionally playing a little bit to the left and taking a club that would not reach it. And speaking of not reaching, take a look at this approach shot. Whoops. And while it can be frustrating to start a round with these kinds of struggles, I do think it's important to use the first 3 holes to assess what do you have in your game on that day. And what I've already noticed about my shots today is that aside from my driver, I have not been fully committing through the shot. So you can see on this pre-shot routine that I'm almost exaggerating the follow-through to really make sure that I am turning around with the rest of my body. And I do hit this one a little bit better. I commit to the shot, it does go onto the green, and I do miss a little bit to the right, which is kind of the first time that's happened today. So that's a minor success. And just like last hole, my first putt is quite lengthy, so I'm using this opportunity to again try and understand how these greens are rolling today. I thought that I was being very generous by aiming quite far out to the left, and apparently that was not even enough. But at least the weight was much better this time, and I leave myself a very makeable bogey putt, which won't feel too bad considering how I'd played this hole already. But I left that short. That's a double bogey. Golf is a funny game, and sometimes all you can do is laugh it off. On to hole 3. And as I am trying to overcome the mental anguish of being +3 through 2, I am now confronted with one of golf's lesser-known pressures, being waved through by the group ahead of you. Now, I am not a music historian, but I can only assume that Eminem's song, Lose Yourself, must have been inspired by him being waved through on the golf course, because at this moment, my palms are sweaty, my knees weak, and my arms are heavy. But thankfully, there's no vomit on my sweater, because I lace this 5-wood right in the middle of the fairway. So with the pressure of the tee shot out of the way, I'm now trying to keep my focus on the main goal here, which is get on this green in regulation, try to 2-putt, and get my first par of the day. And while I try to continue the positive vibes on this hole, it seems like a great opportunity to ask that if you're enjoying this content, I'd really appreciate it if you could like this video, click subscribe to the channel, and maybe even consider clicking the bell so you get notified when I drop my next video. And when I get to the green, I actually realize that this is a makeable birdie putt, so I'm now considering dropping this right into the hole. Unfortunately, because I've still been struggling with the pace of this, I forgot it was downhill. But thankfully it hit the hole, or else I might have been back into the fairway. Nice par. Next up is a relatively short par 3, it's only about 130 yards, and my plan here is to aim at the bunker and try to draw it in. But you'll notice that as I start my pre-shot routine, I get distracted by realizing that my club head's a little dirty. I wipe it off, but I do not reset and start my pre-shot routine again. So this is the type of thing that I need to get better at, because it kind of throws me out of rhythm. And I'm not saying that this is the sole reason that I block another one out to the left and straight into the bunker, but these are all the little things I need to do if I'm going to break 80 consistently this year. Now what you're seeing here is not normal for me. I usually suck out of the bunker, but you could see that I almost dropped this one straight into the cup. And look at that spin. I mean, this thing one-hopped and stopped on a dime, giving me a chance to putt in for par. What do you know? Just missed. Bogey. So one of the things I'm trying to do now that I reach hole 5 is think about some of the positives that have happened from this round that has already been a bit of a struggle. And one of them was my opening tee drive. So I have total confidence when I pull out the driver again, and I hit a really nice fade to the middle of the fairway. Even though it's only been 4 holes, I have enough shots now that I can rely on some positive ones to keep my mindset moving in the right direction. Whether it was my drives both being good, the nice bunker shot, that clutch 5-wood while being waved through by the other group, and now even this approach shot misses a bit short, but I did hit it better. It didn't block out to the left. And as you see me zoom in on my putter here, this is just a tip I thought I would mention in case you don't know. To help keep your grip dry in wet conditions, just put a tee in the ground and rest the grip on top. Voila! When I'm chipping, I usually rely on my 56 degree, but one thing I didn't consider golfing today is that I probably should have done more with my 52 because I needed a little bit more rollout than the 56 allows. So I left myself a lengthy par putt attempt, missed it, tap in for bogey. And with how many times I've missed the cup today, it's starting to wear off into other categories of my life as I completely whiff on my pocket. Disgusting. Hole 6 is a pretty straightforward par 4, but if you take a look at my alignment here, you'll notice how I did not quite do what I thought I was doing. My plan was to fade off of the right side bunkers, and I did not realize that my club head was actually facing that exact line. When you're trying to fade, you want the club head to be facing the target that you want to land on, and only your feet should change. So that was just a full-on pull. The end result is that I land in the bunker that is the exact place I was trying to avoid. It leaves me with a blind shot into the green, which is slightly left of where those power lines are, and I'm trying my best to stick to my pre-shot routine, even though this is hitting conditions that I'm not really used to. And I don't hit it too poorly, but it's a bit more of a pull, so I do end up to the right of the green. This was a tricky shot coming off the hill down to a green that slopes towards the hole, so I would have ideally liked to use my 60 degree, but the ball was a little bit buried down. The end result wasn't actually too bad, as I have about 10 feet or so here to try and save my par, and because I haven't been draining any putts, I decided to take the pin out and see if maybe that's going to help me. Nope, but you'll notice that my pacing is a little bit better, and I gave that a nice aggressive putt, and left an easy tap in for another bogey. What can you do? Shrug it off. Hole 7 is a par 3, which has another bunker off to the left, giving me a little bit of deja vu from the previous time that I blocked it out. So this time I commit to really swinging through, and I end up a little bit right of the pin, and this actually sets up as a great birdie opportunity. I take my time to read this putt from both sides of the hole just to ensure I have a good understanding of the break, but what you'll notice here is that I make 3 practice putting strokes, and all 3 of them are very different sequences. And then when I make my actual putt, the stroke is none of those 3 that I just practiced. So even without seeing this putt, you know what's going to happen. It is well short. And although this hole ends up being about as easy of a par as I could make it, it's more disappointing than some of the bogeys I've had today. Hole 8 actually ends up being a perfect opportunity for me to get my positive vibes back though, because if I can hit another nice 5-wood about 210 to 215 yards out there, I'm going to set up with a really nice 100-yard shot in. But I top it. That was not a great swing, but thankfully it does still end up in the left fairway, so even though I've been hitting some bad shots today, I've still kept everything in play, and that's been a success. This leaves me in a bit of an awkward distance, which is about 110 yards, so I wasn't sure if I wanted to try and muscle up my 56 degree or to dial back on my 52 degree. I ended up deciding to choke down on the 52 degree so I could just do an easy swing, and it ended up just a little bit short, but this does give me a chance to 2-putt for a par, and this first attempt is right on the edge. Almost made the birdie, but I'll take those back-to-back pars and feel like the momentum is starting to swing in my favor. Getting ready to tee off on this 9th hole, I'm hoping that I can string together a 3rd straight par, so I do everything that I can to try and ensure that I have that best opportunity for success. Dry off my grip, stick to my pre-shot routine, and lace an absolute beauty of a drive that fades a little bit back to the left and into the middle of the fairway. This time I have left myself 100 yards into the green, which gives me a chance to use a nice confident swing with that 56 degree. I do leave it off a little bit left to the pin, but I have a birdie putt here, and I should easily be able to make at least a par to end this 9. I give this birdie putt a chance, hit it a little bit firm and just past the left edge, but leaving myself a couple feet back for the par. So after 9, I've hit 44% of my greens in regulation, I've done my pre-shot routine 75% of the time, I've only left 4 putts short, and I've only 3-putted 3 times. That's a bogey. And the frustration that you can see on my face here is because I know that even though I wasn't striking the ball well on that 9, if I would have only 3-putted 1 time instead of 3, I would have still shot 40. But as luck would have it, the back 9 starts with another par 5, so this is a great opportunity for me to try to shake off that 3-putt and play this hole smart in an attempt to get another par. This tee shot ended up almost in the exact spot that I was aiming, and it gave me a chance to think about going for the green in 2, but I decided to lay up off to the left side here and have a nice easy approach in for my 3rd shot. With how poorly I've been hitting my long irons, and this was into a bit of a headwind in the rain, I just did not feel confident clearing those bunkers from 180 yards out. Unfortunately, even though I had the right idea with the layup, I gave myself an awkward distance of about 65 yards. So you can see that I was kind of going for a 3/4 swing there with my 60 degree, and I flew it way over the green. That left me with a chip on to try and get it close enough to salvage a par, and I did not have a good chip at all. But somehow, without draining any good putts on the front 9, that thing manages to go in. And I'm baffled. It went 180 degrees around that cup. This par 3 is the second and final time that I passed a group today, so I do apologize that after this first shot, the camera angles won't be great for the follow-up. But in all honesty, you're not really missing a lot on this hole. I took a 7-iron and I tried to draw it in towards the green, but I just bled it off to the left a little bit. I had to chip out of the rough, and it manages to make it on the green, but leaving myself a pretty lengthy putt to try and save par. It comes up a little bit short, and I tap in for the bogey. I don't know. What do I say about that hole? It's over. Thankfully, hole 12 is a demonstration of me finally doing some good learning in this round. I know that I've been hitting my 5-wood fairly well, and this is another opportunity where it sets up that I can be about 220 yards off the tee and leave myself a decent approach to the green. And I hit a nice little baby draw on that one, and I am leaving myself just over 100 yards to get to the green. I did take the time to notice that the pin was at the back of the green, and there's a ridge that you definitely want to get up over, so I felt very confident giving it a full shot on this one, and I did get on top of the ridge. That left myself with a makeable birdie putt, and I have a really good read on it here, but I just didn't give it enough power. Not bad though, that's a tap-in par, and I'll certainly take that one. Well played hole. And even though this back 9 has been going pretty well for me so far, I have to remember I'm still just an average golfer, so even when things seem to be going relatively comfortable for me, I can't get complacent, and this is an example where I didn't really think too clearly about where I wanted to land this ball. I set up in the middle of the fairway instead of over to the right hand side, because I thought that I was just going to hit a nice little draw again like on the last hole, but I did not draw this ball, and it bleeds off to the left, and you can't see it, but it went over that first little hill, bounced into the water. But instead of getting frustrated, I realized that I could still just play this hole trying to get a bogey. My goal at this point is not to try and throw an absolute dart, but just to get anywhere on the green. If I can get on there, I feel pretty confident at this point that I could 2-putt at least, and I've set myself up at a really decent shot here. And you can see the ball just about goes in, but there we are, tap in for the bogey. And if you're still watching this video, thank you so much. I think I'm going to take a little narration break here and just allow you to listen to some wonderful sounds of nature as you watch me play this par 5 14th hole. And there we have it. Birds chirping, wind blowing, ducking for cover while someone yells 4 from the next hole, and saving a scramble par by putting in off the fringe. What a beautiful game. And you may have noticed that I had slightly pulled my drive on the last hole, but I'm not letting that get in my head here, because for the most part, I've hit my driver really well today. There's just been 2 that haven't been ideal, and I think it's really important not to get too scared with a club just because of a few minor mishits. And it's a good thing too, because I'm right back to that nice little baby fade I love so much. Dang it. I hope this doesn't become a habit for me, but I forgot to record that shot. I had one on the last video too. So this is about 120 yards. I bled it a little bit off to the left. So you'll see I got a pretty lengthy putt for birdie here. And spoiler alert, you're about to watch me 2-putt for par here. Because if you're still watching this video, I would like to ask for your input. In the comments below, it would be really helpful if you could let me know some things that you like about this video, and some things that you think I could do to make my future videos better. For example, do you like when I narrate over every hole, or do you like occasionally having a hole like I just gave where you're listening to the sounds of nature? Are there camera angles that I could make better? Or would you prefer me to actually talk through my shots while I'm on the course? These are all just suggestions. Anything you have in mind. Or you can just comment on how badly I tried to fade this ball and I ended up slicing it into the rough. Whatever tickles your fancy. This is too far to go for the green, so I'm going to try and only hit it about 155-ish, and then that'll leave me around 100 yards in, which I'm pretty comfortable with my 56 degree that way, so we'll see if we can make that work. And there's an example of me talking through my shot while I was on the course. I was just trying something new there. That felt pretty good, and I think it might be close, so we'll see how much I left myself. So close. It's about 110. And 110 yards is a kind of awkward distance for me again, because it's a little too far to use my 56 degree and a little too short for my 52. So I tried to choke down on the 52 and hit a nice smooth shot, and you can see my little nod to Zach Radford with that one, because my thumbs up, I thought it was a lot better than it actually was, but I left this putt pretty far away still. And you'll see I'm giving it a good look, because this is a downhill putt for birdie, and my putting has been much better on this back 9, so I'm really trying to make this one. I don't have a birdie all day, and I'm just hoping it blows over, and it does not, but that's a really easy tap-in par. And that brings us to the penultimate hole of the day. It's 130 yards downhill, and I'm just going to stop narrating again here and just enjoy this memory. It felt so good to finally be able to flap my wings, and here was my on-the-course reaction. Finally! If you stuck around in the video for this long, thank you so much. I would really appreciate it if you could click that like button, and if you haven't yet, click subscribe. Pay some respect to that bird, and there's lots of more golf like this. You never know what you're going to get from me, that's for sure. Thank you. So when the vibes are high in golf, you want to try to ride that wave as much as possible, and thankfully I had a chance to pull out my driver one last time. I knew that I could hit that fade, so I aimed my feet a bit to the right, kept that club face right on my target line. Nice confident swing, beautiful shot, and it was now in my head that I had a chance to go back-to-back birdies to finish, which would make me feel ecstatic. Unfortunately, even though this was a nice clean strike, I think I needed to club up one more because I ended up a little bit short of the green here. I wasn't entirely sure if I was going to try and putt through that or just chip it on, but I decided that because the fringe was pretty wet, that would have been a really difficult putt. So I'm just going to chip this one and try and get it close enough to see if I can make a par at the end here. It ends up just past the hole, but that's a nice easy tap in. I was really pleased that I learned from some of my mistakes on the front 9 and had a pretty decent back 9. Overall, I hit 38% of greens in regulation this round. I did my pre-shot routine 57% of the time. I left 7 putts short, and I ended up with just those 3 3-putts that all came on the front 9. And considering I was on pace to shoot 84 after the front 9, shooting 81 feels really good. Thanks for watching. See you next time.